I just want to do a quick thank you and welcome. My name is Russ Carnahan. I am the co-founder with Andrew Goldberg of Building Action, the Coalition for Sustainable Buildings. This has been an important project here the last few years, and we're pleased to see it grow in terms of our members and allies and our impact. You can learn more about Building Action at buildingaction.org. But today, we're really pleased to be doing another webinar, reaching out to our members and allies and others interested in this important building space. And we're really pleased to be hosting two really true leaders in the Congress, really champions in Senator Heinrich and Congressman Tonko. And I want to turn it over now to my colleague, Justin Kepi, to also welcome folks.
Great, thanks, Russ. Appreciate it. And echo Russ's sentiment there. So great to have everybody here today, and certainly appreciate Senator Heinrich and Representative Tonko for joining us here today as well. Just a quick introduction of myself. So I have the privilege of leading the North America residential and light commercial business for Carrier. And I've been in the role for just north of 2 years now, and it's been an exciting time, I'll say, to say the least. And previously, I had opportunity to work as part of United Technologies. Carrier was part of UTC up until 2 years ago. I was on the aerospace side of the house, and previous background is in the automotive, and started my career in the active duty Army. So let me tell you a little bit about Carrier. Carrier is the global leader of healthy, safe, sustainable, intelligent building solutions. And we've been innovating to address the planet's most complex challenges, which of course includes climate change, and has implications on where we live, what we eat and drink, and also our health. And just an estimation here, it's estimated that buildings in the US alone consume approximately 40% of all energy. And within the buildings, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems account for approximately 40% of the energy use. So it's been widely stated that the HVAC system is the largest consumer of energy within buildings and homes. And we've been continuing to develop solutions and technologies that are helping to reduce energy consumption as well as greenhouse gas emissions with the products we use. I'm also proud to say today that we've, as a company, have set ambitious 2030 ESG goals to reduce our customers' carbon footprint by more than a gigaton by leveraging our energy efficient products and using lower GWP refrigerants, and also expanding our product lines with the cold chain, emerging economies to avoid food loss. And it helps me to kind of quantify, what does a gigaton mean? A gigaton is 1 billion metric tons, and pretty impressive stat. It's equal to the carbon sequestered by more than 1.2 billion acres of U.S. forest, so pretty impactful. One of the ways that we're intending to meet this goal is to invest over $2 billion to develop healthy, safe, sustainable, and intelligent building technologies and solutions that are going to incorporate design principles and reduce life cycle impacts. And we've been consistent. It's not a new thing. We are becoming more ambitious in our impacts, but we've been investing in energy efficient technologies and solutions to help our customers to lower their energy demand and also their associated greenhouse gas emissions. And an example of this, in 2020, we installed our high efficiency as well as our lower GWP refrigerant products, and as well as avoided food waste that helped avoid approximately 68 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, which, to put that into perspective, it's equal to the energy use of more than 8 million U.S. homes in 1 year. So pretty proud of that, and a pretty big impact. And we don't stop there. We're also working with policymakers, regulatory authorities, trade associations, NGOs, and other stakeholders to work collaboratively on pursuing and implementing industry-wide policies and initiatives that are going to drive sustainability by promoting greater energy efficiency and lower greenhouse gas emissions. So one of the efforts here today with the meeting. So thank you for that. And we've also recently rolled out our climate change policy principles, which drive our advocacy in DC. And of course, energy efficiency as well as electrification are extremely important priorities here at Carrier. And just in closing, I'm proud of the progress that we've made to date, and we're committed to being the world leader in healthy, safe, sustainable, intelligent buildings. And thank you all again for attending today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Russ.
Yeah, Justin, thank you, and thanks to you and your colleagues at Carrier for being one of our prominent corporate members of our coalition and for the work that you're doing. You know, the High Performance Building Caucus was really created the Building Action Coalition was really created to create a broader, better connected coalition in the green building space and to advance the policies to transform America's buildings. And Senator Heinrich is with us today. He has been, I had the pleasure to serve with him in the House. He was elected to the Senate in 2012, representing New Mexico. He's on Senate Energy and Natural Resources, Appropriations, Intelligence, and the Joint Economic Committee. He has a background in engineering, and he's really championed legislation around renewable energy projects, and recently co-founded with Congressman Tonko and others the Electrification Caucus, which could not be more relevant in this conversation, pulling together champions within the Congress to take these issues on at this historic time and actually to make progress. So with that, welcome, Senator Heinrich. It is great to see you, and take it away. The floor is yours.
Hi, Russ. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all and join you today. And I want to thank so much to Carrier and the Alliance for hosting this important discussion. It's a real honor to be joined by one of my good friends and former House colleague as well, co-chair of the Electrification Caucus, Congressman Paul Tonko. We used to be part of what was called the Me Caucus, which was because we were the only two mechanical engineers in the House of Representatives. But alongside a number of our colleagues in both the House and the Senate, we started the Electrification Caucus last year to advance policies to accelerate the widespread electrification of our vehicles, our homes, our businesses. Electrifying our economy is the key to helping families lower the cost of their energy bills, allowing America and our allies to achieve true energy independence and meeting our global climate responsibilities. And we all have a role to play in this transformation. The decisions that each of us make around our kitchen tables about which cars we drive and the appliances that we use directly impact our family's health and contribute to the carbon pollution in our atmosphere. And it's not just our cars and trucks, though electrifying light-duty transportation is incredibly important. We also need to confront the gas-fired hot water heaters, furnaces, and other appliances in our commercial buildings and the gas range stovetops and ovens in our homes. There are substantially better, safer, and cleaner electric alternatives, efficient electric alternatives for each of these fossil fuel burning machines that are in our homes and our buildings. These electric substitutes, from air source heat pumps to induction stovetops, can help reduce our climate pollution, improve our health, and create major savings on energy bills. And I'm practicing what I'm preaching on this. Over the last year, I've been working to electrify my home in Albuquerque. I recently installed our second air source heat pump water heater, and it's been remarkable. It's remarkable how efficient and quiet and unpolluting these appliances really have become to operate. And because of the fact that they're heat pumps, so they're not creating heat, they're moving it. Not only do I not have fossil gas burning in my home with the the methane or benzene or other harmful compounds that can come along with that, the cost to operate some of these new technologies really is remarkable. My 80-gallon water heater that was probably burning $300 to $400 worth of fossil gas every year in my home was replaced with a heat pump water heater that burns through about $150 worth of energy bills every year. And that compounds year after year. You know, when you compound those savings over multiple appliances, you can really make a substantial difference in reducing a family's energy burden. And the same thing applies to businesses looking to save on their utility bills by electrifying their buildings. Now, the catch right now is that while the costs are coming down every year for these new technologies, electric appliances can still be more expensive for consumers on the front end, even though they provide remarkable savings over the long term. This will change as more of us choose electrification and as the manufacturing of these new devices becomes more and more ubiquitous. As the market encourages American manufacturers to produce more and more of these appliances, that in turn will drive down costs for consumers. But for right now, we still need, I think, to levelize those upfront point of sale costs, especially for the low and middle income households who stand really to benefit the most from savings on their energy bills. And that's exactly what my bill, the Zero Emission Homes Act, would do by establishing a new point of sale rebate program for new electrified, highly efficient appliances. It's critical that we provide targeted economic incentives that will allow and help low and middle income families realize the full benefits of electrifying their homes. Because frankly, a climate solution that leaves low income and middle income families behind, in my view, is not a climate solution at all. The Zero Emissions Homes Act was included in the version of the Build Back Better Act that the House already passed last year. And I'm still optimistic that we can find a path forward for reconciliation that includes major climate investments in the Senate. But I hope today's discussion will also focus on how the building sector can play a really constructive role in this major transformation of our economy, our homes and commercial buildings, and our electric grid. We're already seeing many communities across the country begin to call for new housing developments that are all electric. Just last week, I visited a new community with ultra energy efficient and fully electric homes in El Prado, New Mexico. Zero E Design's architect is someone named Joaquin Karcher, and he has developed homes with super insulated building envelopes that significantly reduce heat loss. This concept reduces energy consumption of the home by about 90% with a constant indoor air temperature of 70 degrees Fahrenheit. He's made a point of using materials and design concepts that should be scalable for other home builders and affordable for most homeowners. And I strongly believe that this is the direction that housing will continue to trend as more and more consumers look to purchase clean, affordable, all-electric homes. I suspect that we'll soon begin to see the value of electrifying our homes appear in things like home appraisals and in long-term home values. Then we'll start seeing mortgage lenders considering the long-term benefits of electrification and energy efficiency in their underwriting risk assessment process. We also need utilities to start making it easier for homeowners to enjoy the economic benefits of things like demand response programs. And I hope that in years to come, home builders, mortgage lenders, utilities can all work together in the coming years to bring more energy savings directly to homeowners of every walk of life. In that spirit, I've recently been focusing my attention on how we can achieve stronger standards for energy efficiency and electrification, even in manufactured homes. Now, I grew up part of my youth in a double wide trailer. And so I know what it's like to live in this type of manufactured housing, and I know what it feels like to live with the incredible energy burden that comes with low standards and drafty construction. It's in all of our interests, I think, to establish much stronger energy conservation standards for the housing units that so many Americans, particularly in low-income households, call home. I know that many of the panelists that you're about to hear from are thinking through similar big ideas about how we can bring about more widespread and affordable electrification of our homes and our commercial buildings. We all need to think through how we can turn these great ideas into action as quickly as possible. I really hope you'll be inspired by this discussion to call on your member of Congress to join the Electrification Caucus. And I also hope that you will call on your mayors and your city councilors, on your college administrators, and even your utility regulators to adopt smart electrification strategies. And with that, it's my honor to turn this over to Representative Paul Tonko.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Heinrich. Very insightful here on your personal experiences and your call to action. And it's great to hear that you're also leading by example by adopting heat pump technology yourself. So pleased to hear that. It's my honor now to introduce Congressman Paul Tonko, a 6-year member of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing New York's 20th Congressional District. Tonko is a member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce and serves as chair of the Subcommittee on Environmental and Climate Change, where he oversees a wide range of issues, including clean drinking water, regulation of toxic substances, and national climate action. In addition, he serves on a committee on national resources and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, where he has been a longtime advocate for scientific integrity and public research. In addition to his committee duties, Tonko co-chairs the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition, is one of the co-founders with Senator Heinrich on the Electrification Caucus. Prior to serving in Congress, Tonko was the president and CEO of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Before that, he served in the New York State Assembly for 25 years, 15 of which he was chair of the Committee on Energy. At the age of 26, he was the youngest person in the history of Montgomery County to be elected to the county's Board of Supervisors, which he chaired until 1981. Tonko graduated from Clarkson University with a degree in mechanical industrial engineering and is a former engineer for the New York State Public Service Commission. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us today, and welcome.
Hey, Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. And you've got my video, I believe, right?
Looks great, yes.
Okay, great. Look, thank you for the opportunity to join with everyone today, and certainly appreciate the work done by Andrew Goldberg from Building Action and my former colleague, always Congressman Russ Carnahan. So I thank you for the opportunity to join with you and participate in this discussion with a longtime friend and colleague, Senator Heinrich, who, as he indicated, was in the House for a while, and we were that all-encompassing ME caucus, the Mechanical Engineers Caucus, and really tried to push hard on getting tech responses and clean energy responses going in the House. And it's great to now share the opportunity with him being a leader in the Senate. And Senator, I share your enthusiasm about the electrification opportunity. And I think there's great progress we can make, and look forward to serving as one of the co-chairs of that Electrification Caucus. And let me just mention Russ Carnahan. Congressman Carnahan and I were at the table when we founded SEEC, the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition, during my freshman term, and now I'm enjoying co-chairing that great coalition, which really builds a green voice that deploys clean energy concepts through policy and resource advocacy. So, and Justin, thank you again for the work you're doing with Carrier to make certain that we're merging with Building Action and putting together this opportunity to share in a webinar. So for those of us that care about our nation's clean energy transition, we know we need to tackle every sector of our community. It's important for us, I believe, to be that aggressive. I believe we need to put the built environment at the center of our plans, with residential and commercial buildings being responsible for over 30% of U.S. greenhouse emissions. And as Justin mentioned, 40% of the country's energy use and 70% of electricity use. So, the challenge is there, and the efficient outcome is what challenges us. So we need to stay stalwart in those efforts. We often hear about how difficult it will be to decarbonize certain sectors like industry and heavy duty transportation, but buildings are not often part of that discussion, but they should be. And it's going to take an incredible effort, I believe, and requirement for much greater attention to achieve zero emission heating and cooling in every building across our great country. Historic investments in wind and solar mean that our grid is getting cleaner, and electrification will enable us to use that clean energy power that's deployed for all aspects of our lives. But obviously that's easier said than done. And we know that there are many barriers. And of course, there's consumer acceptance and the need to reduce costs, but that's only part of the challenge. Many people live in multi-unit dwellings or rent their homes. They may not be in a position to make their own individual decisions on their building's HVAC systems. And compare this equipment to light-duty vehicles. Consumers drive their cars every day, and they're beginning to see ads for EVs just about around the clock. So people don't usually think about their furnace, their water heater, or HVAC unit unless it breaks. And when it does, people are eager to buy whatever equipment their contractor has most readily available. So the decision to go electric here in our homes or our businesses needs to be a much more conscious one. And we need to make certain that there's a workforce eager to offer and install these options. But the good news is electrification is indeed gaining momentum, and what a great bit of timing as we kick off the Electrification Caucus. People are becoming aware of the major benefits, not just to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to improve that indoor air quality. And there are those growing cost savings benefits as well, which have become even more apparent as Americans feel the pain at the pump and with their heating bills, a pain that we'll continue to experience every few years as long as we continue this dependency on fossil fuels with volatile prices. So I'm actually aware of this with so many people in upstate New York where I serve as a representative. They're paying more for heating oil and certainly for propane this winter. I lived through that oil embargo of the 70s, and I know the only way we can insulate ourselves from volatile energy prices is to embrace clean energy and to embrace electrification. So if we had started to seriously do so in the 1970s, we certainly would be in much better shape today. And if we delay doing so now, and boy, there's those efforts now with the panic button struck with Ukraine conflict and people trying to get us off the course of clean energy deployment, it will only be a matter of time before we are in this situation again. It's going to be responding to the whims of petrol dictators. And we have a great opportunity as a country to really show we care, and we're going to make a difference, and we're going to provide great stewardship of our planet. This is once again why we need to enact major clean energy investments. Investments which include massive increases to incentives for EVs, for tax credits and rebates to help people electrify their homes, and major investments in renewable electricity. In recent years, Congress has made some great progress. The bipartisan infrastructure law had investments in weatherization and funding to upgrade our schools and make other efficiency improvements. And back in 2020, we took a big step and managed to enact a bill called the AIM Act to phase down the use of hydrofluorocarbons, potent greenhouse gases used as refrigerants, by 85% over the next 15 years. So reducing emissions from next generation refrigerants while continuing to decarbonize the grid, is going to allow us to pursue a building decarbonization agenda as a no-lose climate strategy. But now we need those consumer-focused incentives to push homeowners and installers to go electric. And so just how do we get that done? I'm sure today's panelists will have some great ideas, great challenges. And personally, I still believe in the importance of energy efficiency. It ought to be our fuel of choice. Efficiency could deliver over 40% of the emissions cuts that are needed to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement commitment. And heat pumps are often the most efficient option. But modernizing our built environment does not just mean making it more efficient. This is a chance to improve resilience to extreme weather, extreme health and safety by addressing indoor air quality, connectivity by improving access to broadband, and opportunities in electrification to achieve those climate goals and address on-site emissions. We often talk about achieving net zero emissions by no later than 2050. But what we fail to say is that approximately 2/3 of the building area that exists today will still exist in the year 2050. We can't afford to only focus on new constructions, as well as offering some sort of efficiency standards. Also, we need to support strengthening those building codes. We need major incentives for deep retrofits and electrification as a huge opportunity as we enact that work. And that's what Senator Heinrich's Zero Emissions Homes Act would do. I congratulate him on the great effort being made in the Senate. Those rebates, especially for, LMI families, were a critical part of the Build Back Better Act that passed in the House of Representatives, along with expanded tax incentives and funding for states to implement whole home efficiency retrofit programs. This is the start of a very strong building sector package of investments. And through these provisions, we can make certain that electrification is not just technically possible, but accessible to everyone, especially our most vulnerable neighbors, by targeting incentives to low and, yes, moderate income households, as well as using existing programs like LIHEAP and weatherization to support electrification when it can be done most cost effectively. We also need to make investments in grid modernization so that buildings can be part of demand response and load balancing as renewables and EVs grow as a share of our electricity and transportation mixes. So the advocates on this webinar and the experts on this panel have a huge role to play in moving us forward. And again, I like the challenge that the senator offered. We need to involve everybody in the push for electrification. And within the halls of Congress, I know that the senator and I will continue to use this electrification caucus, along with other forums like SEEK, to raise the consciousness, the awareness, and educate and organize members around these issues. I do want to thank you again for the opportunity to join today's webinar. I look forward to working with you to advance electrification across our country and fighting to get these major building sector investments over the finish line this year. So great to join you all, and look forward to getting that Build Back Better, or whatever version and name we give it, to get that over the finish line. It's essential to responding to the climate crisis. Thank you, everyone.
Congressman, thank you so much for your leadership. And Senator, if we were going to see if you could take a few questions, and I want to kick this off while Andrew is looking at some of the questions from the audience. But I guess to your point, Congressman, the building sector package that was in the Build Back Better version in the House, how do you see, what's the best advice for the advocate on the call to,
well, it seems as
building in with that?
I was losing you there, Russ. Russ, I lost your audio. You said something about the Build Back Better Act and the inclusion of the building concepts, and I didn't hear your question.
Yeah, sorry. How best to keep the building sector package in the slimmed down version of Build Back Better?
Well, it seems as though this chunk of activity in Build Back Better has more bipartisan support than many. And so I would encourage members of both houses to keep pushing the priorities here for a climate response, making certain that huge investment in energy and environment transformation is maintained. It's about job creation, it's about deploying clean energy, and it's about better stewardship of our environment. And if we get that trifecta of benefit as a message out there, I think we can really keep this portion of the reconciliation effort intact.
Yeah, I'm curious from the senator, his take on any mansion version of this, that how he looks at buildings.
Well, I think that Congressman Tonko is right on. If we can get a reconciliation package together based on what I've heard from my colleagues, what I've heard from Senator Manchin and others, it is really these provisions, the building provisions, the electrification provisions, the tax provisions around both renewable energy and energy efficiency. That seems to be where a lot of the consensus is. So if we can get a reconciliation package together, I think these things will be really at the heart of it. I think there's some of the things that are pulling people together, as opposed to some of the things that we've had more strident disagreements over.
Andrew, I would just encourage everybody to strike while the iron is hot here. I think both of us have assessed what's going on, and that there is a lot of high prioritization of this agenda within the reconciliation package, but we can't let complacency destroy us here. So just keep banging away, knocking on those doors, and communicate however possible to talk about the job creation and the clean energy agenda, the deployment of that clean energy, and getting it right, making certain that we lead in the efforts so that this is a public-private sector match. So it's time to step up, and I feel optimistic about it.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you both. And we're going to turn to our panel now, and good luck with this reconciliation effort. And thanks for being such great champions for this building sector.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Russ.
See, next we want to go to the panel part of our program. I'm going to transition and do a quick introduction to David Liss. He's Director of Technology and Market Solutions at the Northeastern Energy Efficiency Partnership. Dave, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Russ, and thanks to the Building Action team and the Carrier team for organizing today's event. Wonderful to be with the Senator and Representative. I'm Dave Liss with Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships, where I lead our regional building electrification initiative. We have 3 great panelists joining me today to talk more about what we heard in the first portion here around what it will take to accelerate this market. So let's jump right into the conversation. This first one's going to be for Justin. Could you share your perspective on the current state of residential HVAC market where heat pumps are currently utilized?
Yeah, sure thing, Dave. I'll start by looking at some AHRI data. AHRI industry data. It's kind of shown for the past several years that heat pumps have hovered in the kind of 35% of the total residential split systems from a shipment standpoint. And I'll say historically they've largely been used in the South, rural areas that normally don't have natural gas access. However, things are starting to change. Representative Tonko did a good job highlighting that electrification and clean energy and efficiency they're gaining traction, especially in the midst of rising energy costs. And positive side is awareness is growing. Anecdotally, I'm hearing more and more interest from customers on heat pump technologies that I might not have heard from in the past. And from a data standpoint, in 2021, heat pumps grew at a rate double of what air conditioners grew at. So it's very positive. And this growth seems to be happening in new construction, also replacement of heating systems that burn fuel oil or propane, and most importantly, kind of regions with robust incentive structures. So in line with what both Senator Heinrich and Representative Tonko were highlighting around the importance of incentives. So appreciate the question.
Thanks, Justin. We're gonna pull in Liz Beardsley from USGBC. Next one's for you. We hear a lot about heat pumps and other specific equipment. How do these technologies fit into the broader green building space?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And a really great remarks earlier. So it's exciting to be part of this event today. So thank you to Carrier and everybody.
And Elizabeth, Liz, I meant to remind you to maybe just tell everybody who you're with and just a short bio.
Yeah, I'm with U.S. Green Building Council. I'm Senior Policy Counsel, and we work on federal, state, and local green building and energy efficiency policy, decarbonization. And we're best known for the LEED system, of course. So how do these electric technologies fit in with green building? And they can really be very well aligned, but let me dig into that. From the perspective of LEED as a green building system, we're really focused on outcomes. So we're looking at, low energy intensity, low carbon, healthfulness of a building. And to get there, you can use highly efficient, if you're selecting high efficiency electric equipment and you're matching that with a grid that's getting cleaner, or if you have the opportunity for on-site renewable energy or low carbon energy sources, that's really going to help you get a lot of points in our system. So they're really the electric equipment is a tactic or a tool to get you towards some of those shared outcomes for decarbonization. And then I was really glad to hear demand management, demand response, and peak reduction brought up, because that's really a key area too. And so some of these, electric technologies are going to facilitate the ability to reduce buildings' impact on the peak. And that becomes even more important as we're adding more electric vehicle charging. And, even though the electrification of heating and cooling will add demand, but that really needs to be dampened by using those peak reduction technologies. So that's another place where you can get points in LEED. So there really are, they can fit together as long as there's that strong focus on energy efficiency as a precursor or companion to go along with electrification. I think that's where the benefits are really going to be, as well as holding costs down and showing a long-term sustainable solution.
Thank you, Liz. And lastly, we're going to pull in Steve Nadell with the American Council for an Energy Efficiency Economy. Welcome, Steve. The question for you, in order to decarbonize the U.S. economy, do we need to electrify all, many, or just some of current uses of fossil fuels? And then sort of second part of that is, what role do you see fossil fuels playing in an electrified future? And do a quick bio too, Steve.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate participating in this panel. And yes, I'm the executive director at ACEEE, the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. We're a research organization and also do education and advocacy. And I've been personally involved in a lot of our electrification studies. So we have found that electrification can help decarbonize most, but not all end uses. Just to briefly, most cars can be electrified, but if you're in a truck or a plane or ship that needs to go more than about 500 miles, you may need some type of fuel, too many batteries. Likewise, buildings in warm climates, probably electrification can fully heat the building, the hot water, the cooking. But in cold climates, say from Detroit on north, some supplemental decarbonized fuels may be useful.
Thank you, Steve. We're going to loop back to Justin on this one. It's sort of a two-parter, Justin. We've hit on some of the barriers, but from your perspective, can you touch a little bit on some of the barriers you see to driving increasing market demand, and then sort of the second piece around barriers to increasing production of heat pumps from a manufacturer's perspective?
Yeah, sure thing. So from our perspective, probably the first thing is increasing market demand is the first problem to solve. And homeowners, they have we heard it earlier that the time to replace is usually when the system is obsolete, just an infrequent event. And when they're looking to replace their equipment, whether it be natural gas furnace or whatever the case is, they need to be educated on the benefits of heat pumps. And also be willing to spend a bit more upfront, depending on the installation and type of equipment needed. And it can be challenging. It can be challenging for the contractor to educate the homeowner on the benefits as well as the savings. And the contractor may need training, be able to provide that information to be able to give the right perspective to the homeowners. From a production barrier, it goes without saying that the pandemic affected supply chain. It's not unique to our industry, and we're also seeing just issues around just general production capacity, similar to other industries. As I highlighted previously, past several years, industry has seen about 35% kind of the shipment mix on heat pumps. It's been relatively stable. As that starts ratcheting up, our suppliers as well as ourselves, we need to make sure that we're appropriately making the right capital investments that we can meet this increasing demand. So any policy that leads kind of to an overnight shift, if it's not known in advance, it could create a bit of a misalignment between supply and demand. So it's important that we have, as an industry, the right foresight and ability to make those necessary capacity actions.
Thank you. Steve, you talked about some of the research you've been doing recently. What are the economics of electrification, or what have you found around the economics? What are they like for homeowners and building owners? What are you seeing as good applications, challenging applications, and what do you see for the long-term prognosis?
Okay, yes, we're finding that the economics vary depending on the application: space heating, water heating, depending on the alternative fuel, natural gas, oil, propane, depending on the climate. But to oversimplify a bit, for water heating, electric heat pumps are probably cheaper than an oil water heater, so the payback's almost immediate. For propane and natural gas, you're talking maybe a 3-5 year payback, again, varying with local prices. For space heating, paybacks can be 5 years and up, lower in the warmer climates, and in the very challenging climates, Alaska, I don't think I'd recommend an electric heat pump, at least northern Alaska, maybe in Juneau or something. But in particular, I'd note that it really makes sense in new construction. In general, electrification will be cheaper than installing an alternative fuel in new construction because you avoid the cost of having to install gas piping, et cetera. So lots of different considerations there, but the economics can be very good in many, but not all applications. Oh, and I would note, in general, economics are much better if you have oil or propane heat than natural gas. The hardest applications are existing buildings with natural gas in cold climates.
Thank you. All right, Liz, this one's about, let's see, in your work with cities and states, how are you seeing electrification being brought up into policy discussions?
Yeah, and that's a good segue from Steve's comments, because we're seeing it's not always easy at the state and local level. I mean, so across the board, lots of states and localities are really interested in electrification and looking at it. Lots of modeling and planning is going on. And to various degrees, we see it moving into policy, and that's where there have been some hiccups. So some of the more progressive cities, saw the opportunity, especially given the cost argument, to sort of go right away to discontinuing gas hookups and with the so-called gas bans. And, that's really made it a lightning rod where we now have, I think, over 20 states that have banned gas bans at the local level. And we are concerned because we really don't want this to get more politicized. This is about technology and the shift in our economy that's really going to benefit everyone. And it's essential not only for the environment, but really for our economic health in the global economy. So anyway, so I think there are nuances that are hard, that aren't always picked up when it comes down to some of these policy debates that play out in hearings. We were at a hearing in Maryland earlier this year, and there was a whole lineup of individuals who deliver heating oil or own small heating oil companies, and hearing their personal distress was very real. But on the other hand, we know we have to move as fast as we can on climate. So this is kind of where it is at the ground level, and all these factors, the knowledge base and sophistication or education of the workforce is really important. Having thought about some of the equity issues and the sort of winners and losers and how to address that so that people don't lose their livelihood. These are all really important, and they're felt more closely at a local level.
Thanks, Liz. So our last sort of planned question is around the kind of federal policies or legislation that can help facilitate this kind of smooth transitions to heat pumps. And I'll give everybody a chance to comment. But Justin, you wanna start us off?
Yeah, sure thing, Dave. First, overall, I think a smooth heat pump transition is going to require action from all the stakeholders in the value chain. And as a manufacturer, we were recognized earlier this year from the AHR for the Innovation Award with our leading heat pump technology. And we're continuing to advance the technology. For the likes of, we're participating with the DOE on the Cold Climate Heat Pump Challenge to expand the ability for heat pumps to be cost effective and effective in colder environments. We also play in partnership with our distributors a key role in homeowner and contractor education, and that includes creating and publishing content to educate the homeowners and train the contractors on the benefits of heat pumps. With regard to some of the federal policies, I think there are a few actions that can help support the effort. One is financial support to homeowners to help offset the upfront costs for transitioning the technology. We support the proposed electrification rebate as well as the 25C tax rebate that were included in the Build Back Better bill. And another is the financial support for contractors to help offset recruiting costs and training costs to transition to the new technologies. And finally, regulatory actions that create more certainty by avoiding regulations across the federal departments, I think is important. It includes considering factors that enable a smooth, predictable demand curve, similar to the production concerns that I mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Justin. Let's see, Liz or let's go, Steve. Do you have anything to layer on?
Yes, I do. So essentially, if you want to promote heat pumps, it will help to provide some incentives, whether it's the Heinrich and Tonko Zero Energy Homes Act or various other proposals I've seen. It will also help to put a price on carbon, which will raise the price of the alternative fuels and also provide some money to help pay for these incentives. So that would be useful. And I'd also note the importance of energy efficiency, such as the Home Act that's also in Build Back Better, which would provide incentives for weatherizing homes and apartments. As you weatherize and reduce the consumption of a home or apartment, the economics of electrifying gets better. Also, they can operate to colder temperatures without going into a backup heating mode because they retain heat longer.
And I'll just jump into, echoing the incentives that are direct to consumers are great, but also the workforce support and even midstream incentives could be really valuable. And also going back to the demand response, and there is already money in the bipartisan infrastructure law, the IIJA, for grid flexibility, and some of that really should go to buildings, and that can support installation and use of electric equipment, smart equipment, to demonstrate how that can bring down peak demand and reduce the carbon impact. So I think there's opportunities there, not just new money, which of course we also advocate for, but taking advantage of what's there for maximum impact.
I think we have, we wanted to get one more question in from the audience here before our time is up. There's a question about updates on the Senate negotiations over the energy efficiency tax provisions. Does anybody have any, can anybody provide any updates or information on where those stand?
My understanding is quiet discussions are going on, but they're not being public about it. Particularly the tax provisions in Build Back Better seem to be the starting point, but where the ending point is, what changes will be made, were unclear as far as I'm hearing. There are also a few additional bills now being developed to be introduced that may get into the mix. Time will tell. Most people are talking about trying to get this resolved between now and July 4th, but time will tell. Elizabeth, anything to add?
Just, our understanding is that whole package of clean energy tax credits, which has been really strong and a key component, remains so as a package. So I think that's really positive for both efficiency and electrification.
Thanks. You guys are making these right to the point. We're going to try to get one last one in. Question is around, should public and industrial buildings get more efficiency attention? Any responses to that question from the audience?
Yeah, thank you for the softball. Like, absolutely. We know how there's still a tremendous amount of energy waste out there because of these older buildings, and most of the buildings that will be in place in 2030 and 2050 are already built. So we've got to get these deep energy retrofits happening. We've worked on bills like the Federal Clean Building Jobs Act, and there's other provisions in the original Build Back Better to put some funding towards public buildings, both federal and state. And I think anytime you're investing in public buildings, efficiency and modernization, you're going to see electrification happen as part of that, because a lot of these agencies are looking at their carbon commitments, their reductions that they need, and then they'll do the math and figure out the best path forward. So I think those two will go hand in hand.
And I will just add, industry is another major opportunity. We mostly talked about space heating and water heating, but industry uses a lot of process heat, and there are industrial heat pumps that can serve many of these applications, particularly low and medium temperatures. We're getting heat pumps that can get heat water or steam, significantly above 100 degrees centigrade. And they're hoping to zero in on, call it 200 degrees centigrade. So that's another major opportunity to help electrify and thereby decarbonize.
Fantastic. This was great. Panelists, Liz, Justin, Steve, thank you so much. And I'm going to kick it back over to Russ to finish this off. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave and panelists. That covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, but thank you for the work you do. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I want to thank the folks that joined us today. I want to thank the members and allies in the Building Action Coalition. And I just wanted to share one additional reminder, and we've put up on the screen, coming up next month, May 17 to 19, Department of Energy is hosting the Better Buildings, Better Plants Summit. It's going to be a live event in Washington, and encourage you to check out this link to their website. Encourage you to participate. I think it's bringing together a lot of public and private sector leadership in this space that I think we all want to continue to be engaged there. So please take a look at that. Reach out to Andrew or myself or any of the panelists if you have any follow-up questions. And we look forward to being in touch with you again soon. Thanks so much.